Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit TRE.radio.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with EmeraldConnection.net.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
And a very good evening. Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening. Where are we? We're at the 4th of December. I do hope you're well. I hope you've had a good week. Thank you very much to Howard Brereton for today's edition of Spain Today. Thanks a million, Howard. Look forward to your company again tomorrow between 6 and 7. And yourself and Luna, I insist that you have yourselves a smashing evening, all right? Now, what have we got for you on the programme today? Well, I think I kind of had flagged what we were going to have today, really, didn't I, last week and the last couple of weeks. Patricia will be here with another story, continuing her series on people from Ireland that did something first before anybody else, or the first Irish person to do a certain thing, or whatever the case might be, alrighty? And there's a little story to go before we take today's story from Patricia, but more on that a little later on in this hour. George Lee will be joining me in the second hour, not for a G2, but as promised last week, for a post-election review, because as you know, if you were listening last week to the programme, or indeed if you've been listening over the weekend to some of the news stories, you will know that Ireland went to the polls. A general election was had last Friday. Counting started Saturday morning. It finished pretty much Monday lunchtime-ish, but thereabouts, in the constituency in which I vote, which is County Clare. And it's not always broken into counties. Okay, sorry, must turn off the phone there now. Ping, that's the job. The constituency in which I voted, we had, conclusion, 4 seats filled, 4 elected on Sunday afternoon. I was at the count for some of that on Sunday afternoon, and it was great fun, as it always is, and fascinating to watch the various party personnel and how they work and what they do and how they do it and so on. We've got some music in there, and I've got some stories that I've picked up for you from across Ireland as well, all between now and 9 o'clock. If you can stay with me, that would be absolutely brilliant. I also spoke today. It's been a busy day today, a very busy day. I haven't stopped. Literally, I haven't stopped. And there was a lot of stuff that I had to get done and got delayed with some. Anyway, it was a busy day. But one of the things I had to do was have a chat with the Irish ambassador to Spain, Ambassador Frank Smith. And that you will hear on the 18th, this day fortnight, because that will be our Christmas programme. Alrighty. So you'll hear that this afternoon, that on the 18th. And a joy, as always, to talk to Ambassador Smith this afternoon. Now, if you would like to get in contact for any reason today, you're more than welcome to do that. You can send a WhatsApp message to +34 645 99 67 95. Make sure it's a text message, not an audio message, because I work remotely from Ireland, and I cannot access any of the audio from the studio. Alrighty, so please just make it a text message, or you can send an email if you'd like to Ger, G-E-R, at TRE.radio, or you can use studio@TRE.radio. Now, you will hear me each week say thank you to Antonio Sierra, who is our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor on the programme. But Antonio has had a very long love affair with Ireland, dating back to the late 1960s when he came to Ireland initially, and his love of Ireland has never waned. In fact, I think it's getting stronger as the years go by. But the jury of the University of Malaga Spain Ireland Awards of the Aula Maria Zambrano de Estudios Transatlánticos, which are part of the Centre of Ibero-American and Transatlantic Studies, has announced the result of its latest competition. The award has been granted to The Influence of the Spanish Armada on Contemporary Spanish-Irish Relationships, which was written by 2 researchers, Natalia Mateo Ripoll and Juan José Oña Fernández. The presentation of the award will take place in the new year. And I'm mentioning Antonio's name prior to telling you that for a reason. But let me tell you firstly that the jury, chaired by the CEIT director, Dr. Juan Antonio Garcia Galendo, has emphasized that this text focuses on Ireland's relationship with Spain since the sinking of the Spanish Armada, a historical event still in the memory of both Irish and Spanish citizens. The jury has also valued the amount of individuals and documents consulted, which helps to enrich the research carried out. The awards were created in 2018 thanks to the patronage of José Antonio Sierra, who was the founder of the Instituto Cultural Español in Dublin, the Spanish Institute, which is now known as the Cervantes Institute. The aim of the awards is to stimulate research on the relationship between both countries in any academic and scientific discipline. Between 2018 and 2023, there have been 5 annual editions of the Spain-Ireland Awards, with 3 different awards each year. There's the George Campbell Award, the Kate O'Brien Award, and the Robert Boyd Award. So there we go. Congratulations to Natalia and to Juan Jose on the results this year. And well done to everybody involved, most especially our Antonio Sierra. Oh, more than 300 people. This is a lovely story. You know, when we might be having a little cerveza or might be having a coffee or a little drop of wine and something would have happened and it's in the news and you said, you know what, the world has gone mad. And, you know, it isn't as nice as it used to be. And things like that. And we bemoan maybe the olden days or when we were younger and so on and so forth. Well, this is a beautiful story that came from County Carlow yesterday, because I want to tell you about more than 300 people attending the funeral of a woman in Carlow after an appeal on social media by a funeral director who was concerned that there would be very few people present. All right. Mary Regan, who was 89, had lived in Carlow for several years. And, sorry, I'm just cleaning my glasses and putting them back on. She'd lived there for several years, and since the passing of her husband, Fred, over a year ago, the West Cork native had no next of kin. She also did not have any visitors to Hillview Nursing Home, where she resided. Following her death, the funeral director, Rory Healy, went on social media and asked locals in Carlow to spare 90 minutes of their time to attend her funeral before she was returned home to West Cork to be buried. Mr. Healy said afterwards that over 300 people turned up to pay their respects. He said that even though it was a solemn occasion, it was a good day for Carlow. I would suggest it was a good day for mankind, indeed, and indeed for Mary. And she wasn't, it was good, he said, that she wasn't being sent back to Cork alone. Mary was predeceased by her siblings, Paddy, Con, Patricia and Jerry, and her partner Fred Lang. And she was laid to rest today in West Cork alongside her siblings. A lovely story, and well done to all of the people who turned out to the church in Carlow yesterday to bid farewell to her. Nice one. More than 6,000, this is another positive story, more than 6,000 people are being granted Irish citizenships and ceremonies in Killarney, County Kerry this week, as a record number of people had their citizenship approved this year. More than 30,000 people received their decision, and the most in a single year since records began. Now, this is an increase of 20,000 on last year, and nearly doubled the number of decisions made in 2022. 7 ceremonies at the INEC Killarney on Monday and Tuesday granted citizenship to applicants hailing from more than 140 different countries and living in all 32 counties. Each ceremony saw applicants take an oath of fidelity to the nation. They then received a certificate of naturalisation in the weeks following the ceremony. The country from which most applicants hail from, a total of 1,147 in this round of ceremonies, is India. It's followed by the UK with 636. Brazil, Romania and Poland make up the rest of the top 5. Nigeria, the Philippines, South Africa, China, including Hong Kong, and the US round out the top 10 of applicants by nationality. Ceremonies marking the occasion of citizenship being granted were first introduced in 2011. Since then, 197 ceremonies have been held. People from more than 180 different countries have received their certificates. More than 191,000 people have received their citizenship in the 13 years since the first ceremony was held. A total of 24 citizenship ceremonies were held this year. And this is an increase from 15 last year and just 6 in the year 2022. Changes to the protocol to speed up the application process have seen the introduction of online applications and payments, as well as electronic vetting. It is expected that the majority of applications based on residency will get a decision within 12 months. Applicants are required to have 5 years of reckonable residence in the state before they can make an application. So there you go. Just in case you're thinking that you might like to apply, you have to have that much done anyway. All right. Okie dokie. Will we take some music? I think we will. What are we going to start with? What did I decide? Are we going to start with this? I think we are, actually. And so. I was wondering, was it going to start at all? There we go. Alrighty. Here's music from the Devlins from their most recent album. It's a song that's called Future Ghost.
If you kill me, I will come back as your future ghost. If you kill me, I will come back as your future ghost. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, I will find you, your future ghost, your future ghost. You feel afraid of your own shadow. Even if I leave you, I'll never leave you alone. Your future ghost, your future ghost, your future ghost, your future ghost. Trick, a black dog on your trick, the nightmare vision. You're a disgrace for what you did. You can't spin it. Now you're in it. I'm your future ghost. Your future ghost. So get with it.
Comes from the Devlins. That's a song that's called Future Ghost. From a brand new, a new album from them. I like some of the stuff that the Devlins do. Some of it is a bit too whingy for me. Well, describe whingy. No, we leave it alone. No, we will, yeah. Right home. Sorry. That's the one that's coming up fairly shortly. So we can send that back to the start over there. That shouldn't have happened. No. Anyway, a fresh legal challenge. We've talked about this road before. It's the A5 road between Derry and Tyrone. And anyway, a fresh legal challenge to the 1.2 billion pounds A5 road upgrade in counties Derry and Tyrone will be heard in March of next year, a High Court judge has confirmed. Mr. Justice McAlinden also allowed a group campaigning campaigning for improvements along a corridor which has claimed dozens of lives, permission to participate in the case, granting the status to the A5 Enough is Enough body. He said the court will not refuse to receive information from those that have been directly affected by tragedy resulting from accidents on the existing carriageway. The long-awaited upgrade to the stretch of road between Derry and Auchnatroy in County Tyrone was given the go-ahead by Stormont Infrastructure Minister John O'Dowd last month. Work on the first phase of the 85-kilometre project had been due to begin early next year. With 57 deaths recorded on the A5 since 2006, campaigners have demanded improvements to be carried out. The scheme, which forms part of a proposed key cross-border business route linking Dublin and the Northwest, has already been held up by previous legal actions. An umbrella body of landowners, farmers and supporters known as the Alternative A5 Alliance successfully challenged earlier decisions to approve the project in 2013 and again in 2018. Fresh proceedings have been brought by 9 individuals against the Department of Infrastructure. They claim the decision to begin the initial phase breaches legislative goals for cutting greenhouse gas emissions in Northern Ireland. The Climate Change Northern Ireland Act of 2022 contains a series of interim targets moving towards achieving net zero emissions by 2050. According to lawyers representing the group, approving part of the A5 scheme is irrational and an unlawful breach of the Act. In court, counsel for the department stressed the need for the challenge to be heard as soon as possible, with a vesting order for ownership of the land now in place. Paul McLaughlin, KC, submitted, "There is a very substantial public interest in this. The department has programs in place for beginning site work, and there are ongoing discussions with contractors." Ackland Bryant, who is representing the 9 people taking the legal action, agreed that there should be no delay, but suggested time will be needed to deal with the complicated procedural background. Mr. Justice McAlinden, who has already pledged to clear his diary to deal with the case, confirmed it is to be listed for a 5-day hearing in March, citing negotiations with potential contractors for the major development. He insisted that the case needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. In a further development, the A5 Enough is Enough campaigners made an application for intervener status. Stephen Toll, KC, for the group, said it was created after Tyrone Gaelic footballer John Rafferty, who was 21, was killed on the A5 in October of 2022. GAA stars Kevin Hughes and Niall Devlin have also lost siblings in crashes on that road, the court heard. Mr. Toll said that is the reason why the management committee of Tyrone GAA decided to form this representative group. Since formation, the group has expanded to include dozens of families who lost loved ones on the A5. The campaigners have met with Stormont ministers, district councillors and representatives in Dáil Éireann. Mr. Justice McAlinden was told the group wanted to provide evidence and assist in the case. Granting the application to participate in the proceedings, he explained, this is in essence an environmental challenge to be looked at in the context of a very significant infrastructure project, which is not only intended to improve connectivity throughout the island of Ireland, but also in the eyes of many a vital piece of work needed to ensure further lives are not lost on that particular journey ends. Alrighty. As I said, we've talked about that particular story, and I would think you're going to hear a lot more about the doomed A5 story. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. An interesting story, this. It's from Mountjoy Prison in Dublin. The liaison Catholic bishop to Irish prisons has said that he has been assured about a construction project that got underway in the chapel of Mountjoy Prison on Monday. Bishop of Kilmore, Martin Hayes, met with the Director General of the Irish Prison Service, Karen McCafferty, on Friday over what he described as a lack of consultation with prison chaplains regarding the renovation. The bishop said he was reassured that there is a long-term commitment to the chapel located in the main prison of Mountjoy. Due to the increased demands on prison staff and the rising number of prisoners scheduled to attend court, the Irish Prison Service has chosen to adjust the footprint of underutilised space at the rear of Mountjoy Chapel to safely accommodate a new video link area for court appearances. While the chapel will be closed to prisoners during the construction period, which is estimated to take 8 weeks, the Irish Prison Service has said that the works will not affect the integrity or functionality of the space. In a statement last week, Bishop Martin Hayes said that there had not been appropriate consultation with prisoners or with prison chaplains regarding the project. He said the unilateral approach ran counter to maintaining harmonious and respectful relations in the prison community. He also described the decision as particularly poignant because the holy season of Advent leading to Christmas began on Sunday. Governor of Mountjoy Prison, David Tracy, acknowledged the inconvenience. However, he said the decision was taken because the courts will be closed over the Christmas period. This gives up the opportunity to complete these works in preparation for growing attendees to court in January, he said. The Irish Prison Service pointed out that in prison, Mass is available at other locations around Mountjoy Prison, and those who were unable to attend those locations for security or operational reasons would be able to access Mass via a live stream on the in-cell TV channel. However, Bishop Hayes said Mass via webcam was not the optimum celebration of the Eucharist because it lacks the community dimension of the in-person priest and congregation. He said when people gather for Mass, they do so to become the body of Christ, which is why it should be in person. And this was something he said should be considered by those over-relying on the web at the moment. Mountjoy Chapel will be reopened following the construction work and will retain the capacity of up to 96 people. In-person Mass is held each fortnight, and the average attendance for in-person Mass at present is around 25 people. Now, as I said, an interesting story from Mountjoy. Here's an interesting piece of music.
Come on to my party, you can drink what you wanna. Come on, let's get started. There's a cake in the oven. Come on, I don't care who you are. There's a place in here for everyone. So I said, hey, you're my brother. Come and meet my sister. Every face has a mother. Everyone's each other. It's a dad and an uncle, aunties, cousins. Everyone's here, and we're all just one big family. Yeah, everyone's here. Everyone's here. Everyone's here. Everyone's here.
His name is Brian, B-R-I-E Fada N. Brian, right? And that's a song that's called Everyone's Here. An unusual song, isn't it? Nice one, though. I like it. I like the sound of it, as the fella says. I'm going to take a very quick break. Come back to me, please, if you would, just after that. And I will have more news for you, but I want to introduce you to Patricia as well.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Here's an interesting story. I've heard about it, but it's come to a conclusion at last. A taxi driver who faced losing his public service vehicle license, PSV license, as he would only accept cash from customers, has agreed to use an app to facilitate card payments. Willie Wise, that's his name, of Onslow Gardens in Cork, who has driven a taxi for more than 40 years, appeared before Cork District Court last September to appeal against the revocation of his licence. Mr. Wise had for some time employed a strict no-card policy in his taxi. He does not have a bank account and his vehicle was emblazoned with cash-only signs. Mr. Wise previously told Judge Mary Dorgan that he closed his bank account following the economic crash of 2010, having lost his faith in the institutions. As a result of not having a bank account, he had been unable to take payment by cards. At the September hearing, Judge Dorgan asked Mr. Wise what would happen if he won the lottery, and he replied that he would have a very happy wife. The funds would have to go into her bank account. Judge Dorgan adjourned the case to give Mr. Wise time to consider his position. She urged him to get a bank account. Mr. Wise appeared before Cork District Court again recently, where he told Judge Dorgan that having gone through all of the sections of the relevant Taxi Legislation Act, he understood he would have to set up a card payment system. He said that in 42 years of driving, he had never had a summons imposed against him. Mr. Wise said he still does not trust banks or have a bank account. However, he had found a novel way of staying compliant with the taxi regulations. He reached a solution by allowing passengers to pay by card in his taxi through the Sum Up card reader system, which is used by many taxi drivers. Mr. Wise indicated that he had acquired a bundle of fines arising out of his decision not to accept card payments. However, he stated that Judge Joanne Carroll had previously imposed a fine of just €150 on him. Judge Carroll also convicted him on just one summons. Mr. Wise said that he knew he needed to set up the Sum Up system in his taxi, as the law is the law and I cannot go against it. Mr. Wise thanked Judge Carroll for her wisdom, courtesy and compassion when dealing with the bundles of fines he had received. He also thanked Judge Dorgan, whom he noted had been very fair. Mr. Wise said that he was delighted to be able to use the Sum Up card reader, which means that he still will not have to have a bank account. He said the appeal was not about beating the law. He said, when I was saying that the Taxi Regulation Act of 2013 should have been more specific, 19% of the taxi fleet in Ireland are pensioners. Not everyone has a bank account. They brought in the legislation on mandatory card payments in taxis on the 1st of September 2022. What provision do they supply for the people who are not up to date with technology, he asked. Overnight, they were expected to do this: use card readers. They had a duty of care to their service providers, he said. So no, an interesting case. As I said, it's one that I had heard about, and I think I even read something about it one evening on the programme. So there you have it. Right, okay. This is going to link in very nicely to what Patricia is going to be talking about today. The former President of Ireland and UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mary Robinson, has been conferred with an honorary doctorate from Atlantic Technology University, or ATU. Mrs. Robinson's extraordinary contributions to human rights, climate justice and global leadership were highlighted in a special ceremony at ATU's Mayo campus in Castlebar. Mrs. Robinson said that receiving an honorary doctorate on a campus in her native county Mayo was a particularly special honour. She called for the end of double standards in international law, as well as the need for the world to do more in the fight against climate change. ATU President Dr. Orla Flynn described Mrs. Robinson as an inspiration. Mrs. Robinson was nominated for the honour by a member of ATU staff, and her nomination was approved by the Honorary Doctorate Subcommittee of the University's governing body. Let's go straight to Patricia and find out what story she has for us this evening.
Hello, Ger. Well, who was the first female president of Ireland? Well, the answer is Mary Therese Winifred Robinson. She became not only the 7th president of Ireland, but also the first woman president when she was sworn in on the 3rd of December 1990. Mary Therese Winifred Burke was born in Ballina, County Mayo. Both her parents were doctors, but she decided to study law. She studied at Trinity College and King's Inns in Dublin and at Harvard University, Massachusetts in the US. She met her husband, Nicholas Robinson, who was also studying law in Trinity College, and together they established the Irish Centre for European Law. Mary graduated with a first-class honours degree in 1967, and in 1969 she became Ireland's youngest professor of law when she was appointed Reid Professor of Constitutional and Criminal Law in Trinity College at the age of 25. She was elected to Seanad Éireann as one of the University of Dublin's 3 members. In 1970, she married Nicholas Robinson, who was then a practicing solicitor. They have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. In 1990, the Labour Party asked her to be their candidate for the presidential election. She agreed and was Labour's first presidential nominee and was also the first female candidate to run for the presidency. That year, there were 3 nominees. Mary Robinson was fortunate to have the backing of the Irish Times and the Workers' Party and was strong in Dublin and Cork. But there were 2 other candidates. Austin Curry was the Fine Gael's candidate and Fianna Fáil's candidate was Brian Lenihan. Lenihan had been Taoiseach and Minister of Defence, and at the beginning of the campaign he was seen as the odds-on favourite. However, he lost the support of the Taoiseach Charles Haughey and was sacked from his positions in the cabinet. Although he was ahead in the first stage of the election with 44% of the first preference votes, he was outvoted by Mary Robinson in the second round when she scooped up the transfer votes from Austin Curry and was declared the winner. It probably came as something of a surprise to the other 2 candidates when Mary Robinson was voted in as Ireland's first female president. Brian Lenihan, who had been the favourite, was generous enough to say 5 years later, before his death, that Mary Robinson was a better president than he could ever have been. Mary Robinson became the first Labour Party candidate, the first woman and the first non-Fianna Fáil candidate in a contested presidential election to win the presidency. Mary Robinson had a transformative effect on Ireland. She was seen as Ireland's most popular president, having an approval rating of 93% among the electorate. There was a definite change in Irish-Anglo relations when she became the first Irish president in office, to be invited to visit the UK to meet Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace. She later welcomed a visit of Prince Charles to her official residence, Áras an Uachtaráin. During her visits to Northern Ireland, she met politicians from all sides, including Gerry Adams, the president of Sinn Féin, David Trimble, leader of the Ulster Unionist Party, and John Hume of the Social Democratic and Labour Party. She was also granted an audience with Pope John Paul II in the Vatican. There's no doubt she was very popular throughout her 7 years as president. She remained president until 1997, when she resigned to take up her appointment as the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. She promoted human rights at the national and regional levels and was the first High Commissioner of Human Rights to visit China. She also played a role in monitoring human rights in Kosovo. In 2001, Mary Robinson served as Secretary General of the World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia and Related Intolerance, which was held in Durban, South Africa. Mary Robinson served as Chancellor of the University of Dublin from 1998 until 2019 and was Oxfam's Honorary President from 2002 until 2012. In 2008, she was elected President of the International Commission of Jurists. She has received honorary doctorates from 31 universities all over the world. She is an active participant in an organisation called The Elders, which was formed by Nelson Mandela, Graça Machel and Desmond Tutu. The goal of this organisation was to offer help and advice on some of the world's toughest problems. Until 2018, Kofi Annan had been the chair of the Elders, but on his death, Mary Robinson was chosen to be the chair of the Elders. On the 8th of February 2010, Mary Robinson inaugurated the Mary Robinson Foundation Climate Justice under the Innovation Alliance of Trinity College Dublin and University College Dublin, both of which gave significant donations. The goal of the organisation is to work towards a sustainable future by tackling climate justice issues in three main areas: human rights and climate change, women's leadership on gender and climate change, and future generations. Far from being a figurehead, Mary Robinson takes an active role in the struggle of those who are poor and vulnerable to the impact of climate change and who are generally forgotten. Recently, in June 2024, the Mary Robinson Centre was opened in the family house that Mary grew up in Ballina. It is now a centre for change, which will become an educational outreach facility for the University of Galway. The centre is a partnership between the local community, Mayo County Council and the University of Galway. The theme of the Mary Robinson Conference held in the centre in June 24 was a shared response to a shared responsibility. Mary Robinson has generously donated her extensive personal archive and memorabilia to the University of Galway. They will be on display in the centre, which is now open to the public and will welcome school visits. University College Galway will integrate the centre into its existing and new human rights, equality and climate undergraduate and postgraduate programmes. There's no doubt about it. Mary Robinson will go down in the history books, not only as the first female president of Ireland, but as an outstanding human being who works tirelessly to improve the lives of people all over the world. Mary Robinson's memoirs, entitled Everybody Matters, was published by Hodder and Stoughton in September 2012. This was the theme of her life. Everybody matters. Ireland is proud to have had such a great president, whose selfless dedication did not end when she left the presidency. On the contrary, her contribution to making the world a better place continues and will never be forgotten.
Blood, breasts, hair, and so much potential. Morning comes, night all haze. I'm aware, but it's easy to pretend. Oh, I don't wanna be just a character lost in history, Mrs. Van Gogh. 'Cause I've been silenced one too many times, and now I've got a ghost in my throat. I am nimble, but I'm not weak. I'd walk my trouble troubles around the streets. Fear is what I'm fed. You can't trust no one. Just be graceful and don't be loud. Oh, I don't wanna be just a character lost in history, Mrs. Allan Poe. 'Cause I've been silenced one too many times, and now I've got a ghost in my soul. I am shedding with each month, like a snake, a modern Medusa. Time has wrung me out. Hold steady, be ready for when love comes. Oh, I don't wanna be just a character lost in history, Mrs. Charles Bukowski. 'Cause I've been silenced one too many times, and now I've got a ghost at my heels. Oh, I don't wanna be just a character lost in history, Mrs. Oscar Wilde. 'Cause I've been silenced one too many times, and now I've got a ghost in my side. Ghost in my side, my side. Ghost in my side, my side.
That comes from a lady by the name of Ciara O'Neill. It's a song called Woman, and I thought it would be appropriate after Patricia's story about the first woman president of Ireland, Mary Robinson, or Mary Burke. And it dawned on me, actually, just as I started playing it, that O'Neill, isn't that Patricia's maiden name? I think it is. I think so. Oh no, her mam was O'Neill, wasn't it? Because I remember she telling a story about she was saying she was a princess. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it was one of the first stories that Patricia told us about the day she went to school with airs and graces because she had been told she was a princess because she was O'Neill. Aye. And the great associations that goes with that. Anyway, there you are. Now you see. Aye, it's great, isn't it? Yeah. What was I going to say to you? Oh, yes, I am tempted. There may be two. There's only two stories left in this particular series from Patricia. And my plan was to play one next week and one on the 18th. But the 18th is our Christmas show, really. And I don't think it's going to fit. When I say fit, with the theme of the Christmas and the whole thing. So what I might do, I might play two from Patricia. I might play the final two next week on the programme. We'll see. I'll see what way the whole thing is playing out for me. And one way or the other, we'll have that series finished before Christmas anyway. All right. And there isn't a programme on the 25th. In fact, I'll tell you more about what's happening after the 18th, next week on the programme. All right, so there you have it. Now, I'm going to take a very quick break, and when I come back, I hope you will still be there, and we'll tell you another few stories that I've picked up, and we'll play some more music as well. We're heading towards news rapidly in about 12 and a half minutes time, but sure, that'll only take 2 minutes, so it won't be disturbing anybody. I'll check the fire while the ads are on.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
You're welcome back, and thank you. Well, I'm welcome back, I hope, and thank you for staying with me. And do stay with me if you can until 9 o'clock this evening. We have about 9 minutes now to go before we head into the news at the top of the hour. Don't forget that George will be along in the second hour. We're going to be talking about the general election, just in case you thought I'd forgotten about it. Far from it. The United Kingdom and Irish governments are committed to finding a way through disagreements on legacy legislation. Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn has said Mr Benn met Taoiseach Micheál Martin, soon to be Taoiseach again, at the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference at Farmley House in Dublin. They talked about the controversial Legacy Act that was first introduced by the previous British Conservative government, which halted scores of civil cases and inquests into Trouble's death. Now, the current Labour government has committed to repealing and replacing the Legacy Act, but have kept the Independent Commission for Reconciliation and Information Recovery, which can investigate Trouble's deaths and, on the request of bereaved families, victims and certain public authorities. Last year, the Irish government initiated an interstate legal case against the UK in the European Court of Human Rights, claiming that the Act breaches the European Convention on Human Rights. The case remains active, with the government in Ireland wanting to see how the Labour government resolves its concerns over the contentious legislation before any decision is taken to withdraw the action. Mr Martin said that he and Mr Benn had a serious discussion on the question of dealing with the past and the British government's continuing concerns about the legislation. The Taoiseach said his clear view is that victims and their families need avenues to justice and access to information. A significant reform is required to secure that. Asked what the Irish people would tangibly feel in the reset of Irish-British relationships, Mr Benn referred to the new government's desire to have a close relationship with the EU and ongoing engagement in relation to legacy. Mr Benn said that everyone on the platform is opposed to the Legacy Act, and the British government has committed to repeal and replace it, getting rid of immunity, restoring civil cases, restoring inquests, starting with those who were brought to an end. So there we have it. It took me a few moments to figure out what that meant, brought to an end, but those cases that have been stopped, that's what he means by that. There has been a rise in binge drinking and a decrease in the numbers meeting physical activity guidelines, according to a new survey. The Health Ireland survey was conducted on 7,400 people over the age of 15. This year, for the first time, the annual survey looked at the impact of COVID-19 and long COVID. 7% of respondents reported experiencing symptoms of long COVID, defined as symptoms that continue for 4 months or more, with 3% receiving a long COVID diagnosis. Overall, the survey found that 81% of respondents reported their general health to be good or very good. However, it did highlight some areas of concern. Alcohol consumption within the previous 12 months has risen from 70% to 73%, but remains lower than the 75% which was reported in 2018. There has also been an increase in the numbers who are considered binge drinkers, defined as drinking 6 or more standard drinks, rising from 24% last year to 28% this year. Just 41% of people report meeting the national guidelines for being moderately active for at least 150 minutes per week. That is a reduction from the 46% recorded in 2019. However, walking is not included in that calculation, and more than 60% of people report walking for 10 minutes or more at least 5 times a week. The survey results also show a rise in the numbers consuming sugar-sweetened drinks at least once a week, from 29% in 2019 to 32% this year. There was also a small reduction in the numbers eating fruit and vegetables daily, while just 28% eat the recommended 5 or more portions per day. The number of smokers continues to decline, with 17% of respondents saying that they smoked, down from 18% last year. The number of people identifying as carers continues to rise from 9% in 2015 to 14% this year. The proportion of people that have visited a GP are at their highest level since first reported in 2015, with 79% reporting visiting a GP in the previous 12 months, with an average of just over 4 visits per person. Interim Chief Medical Officer Mary Horgan said that this reflects the growing needs of an ageing population, but also noted that eligibility for GP visit cards has been expanded. Hadi, that's probably something to do with it. All right, what do you think? Oh, this sounds very laid back and chilled out, Ger. It is. A man that you would have heard on the programme before. I haven't interviewed him on Live on Eire, but I have interviewed him down through the years. An interesting character and very eclectic and very cosmopolitan, I suppose, with his music. Here's Jerry Fish, the story of an artist.
Listen up and I'll tell a story about an artist growing old. Some will try for fame and glory, others aren't so bold. Everyone and friends and family saying, hey, get a job. Why do you only do that only? Why are you so odd? We don't really like what you do. We don't think anyone ever will. It's a problem that you have, and that problem's made you ill. So listen up and I'll tell a story about an artist growing old. Some will try for fame and glory, others aren't so bold. The artist walks alone, and someone says behind his back, he's got the gall to call himself that. He doesn't even know where he's at. The artist walks among the flowers, appreciating the sun. He does this all his waking hours. But is that really so wrong? They sit in front of their TV, saying, hey, this is fun. And they laugh at the artist, saying he doesn't know how to have fun. The best things in life are truly free. Singing birds and laughing bees. You've got me wrong, says he. The sun don't shine in your TV. So listen up and I'll tell a story about an artist growing old. Some will try for fame and glory, others just like to watch the world.
Interesting, isn't it? Comes from Jerry Fish. That's a track that's simply titled, what was it called again? Oh yeah, The Story of an Artist, from an album called Thinking of Daniel. Right, I'm off to hear the news, and I'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
And you're welcome back. Thank you for staying with me. I hope that you will stay until 9 o'clock this evening. As always, if you'd like to get in contact, you're more than welcome to do so. Our WhatsApp machine is all cranked up and polished and ready. You can send a text message there to +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. All right. Now, this has gone down like a lead balloon, particularly when you consider the time of the year. The National Transport Authority, or the NTA, has increased taxi fares by 9%. Those pre-booking a taxi through taxi apps will also have to pay an extra €1 fee for this service, with the NTA increasing it from €2 to €3. This brings the increase to more than 10%. Taxi app Uber has criticised the NTA decision, saying it believes that this move will negatively affect the nighttime economy and does not address taxi shortages. Uber said the NTA's decision to increase pre-booking fees and extend peak time rate would significantly increase the cost of taxi journeys. The special rate, in inverted commas, which currently applies to taxi fares during Christmas and New Year, has also been extended to weekend peak times. This means that taxis at this time will cost users €2 per kilometre on top of the pre-booking charge and the initial charge. This will disproportionately affect workers in the hospitality, entertainment and nightlife sectors, Uber said in response to the measures, which came into effect on Sunday. It also points to the NTA's taxi driver survey, which was published last August, that found that only 14% of current drivers would be encouraged to start driving at night as a result of increased prices. Head of Uber Ireland, Kieran Hart, said the taxis were a vital part of Ireland's transport network, especially at night time. This decision will not only discourage people from enjoying the nighttime economy, but will also harm businesses that rely on late night trade, he said. Ireland is already more expensive compared to the UK, France, US and Australia, and this decision will penalise users further. Uber is calling for practical measures to attract and retain more drivers, such as improving driver and customer safety, reducing the cost of entry for new drivers and updating the SPSV driver entries test specific geography-based knowledge requirements. It is a bit of a quagmire. I know that much for sure. Am I going to give you this story now, or will I give you this one? Okay, there's less than this, so I'll give you this one. There has been a significant decrease in performance in maths and science among girls in Ireland in recent years. That's according to data which was published earlier today. Tests carried out involving both Irish fourth class and second year students as part of the Trends in International Mathematics and Science study, the TIMS, it's called TIMS 2023, show a significant decrease in the scores achieved by second year girls, while second-year boys' scores remained steady, as did the scores achieved by both sexes in fourth class. Now, fourth class would be about 8 or 9 years of age. Second year would be somewhere in the region of 14. Yeah, in around there. Let's see, where are we at with this? More than 6,300 fourth class pupils and more than 6,300 second year students in post-primary were tested last year as part of the latest TIMSS cycle. Internationally, more than 650,000 students across 65 countries participated. Once again, Irish students emerge among the top performers internationally. Of course they did, with no EU country performing significantly higher in either subject at second year. Internationally, only 5 countries, all East Asian, achieved higher scores than Irish fourth-class pupils, and only 4 East Asian countries beat the performance of Irish second-year students. However, the outcomes also show an unexplained decline in the performance of second-year girls. Dr. Sylvia Denner, one of the authors of the TIMS study, said that the mean score achieved by second-year girls in TIMS has decreased significantly over time since 2019. 2013 for mathematics and since 2015 for science. Researchers now see for the first time in 2023 significant gender differences in TIMSS, with boys significantly outperforming girls in both mathematics and science. Over the coming months, more detailed analysis on this gender difference, including an examination of attitudes towards learning in both subjects, will be conducted. The new figures also show some improvement in the performance of higher achieving students in Ireland. Dr. Aidan Clerkin, another author, said one challenge that had been highlighted in previous studies was the underperformance of higher achieving students in Ireland compared to other countries. From that perspective, an important new finding from TIMSS 2023 is that more students are reaching the more advanced benchmarks for mathematics and science compared to earlier studies. While this is a positive finding, there is still scope for further improvement among higher achievers. The study is directed internationally by the TIMSS and PIRLS International Study Centre at Boston College in the US and is managed by the International Association for the Evaluation of Educational Achievement. There's a lot of mouthfuls in there, isn't there? There is indeed. Alrighty, I think it's time for some music. Here's Niall McCabe. Not sure, I think I played this for you back around September time, but I'll listen to it again. Here it is, it's called Darker Love. Hope you're enjoying the programme so far.
I gotta build my fences high, too high for you to see me cry, high enough to block out you, too high for you to see my point of view, and still the smell in your backyard, your children crying and your dogs bark, you're singing and your music tracks come through the wall, they're coming through the cracks, and I don't want to hear your song, oh you and I can't sing along, I'd rather hear a pretty lie, oh I'd rather let the music die, must be darker love, a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, must be a darker love, my mama gave to me, it must be a darker love, a darker love, darker love, a darker love, must be a darker love, what we used to see, oh you love to say it's true and right, your fingers tapping through the night, you tell us all just what to do, yeah, but Jesus, he could never follow you, and no one ever cared so much, your silver tongue and golden touch, you love everything and everyone, but you love like a soldier with a loaded gun, must be a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, must be a darker love, and my daddy gave to me, it must be a darker love, a darker love, darker love, a darker love, must be a darker love, and what we used to see, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la la la, a mountain before us and a jungle behind, it's a tangle of vines or a hill to climb, so get in line, river behind me and an ocean ahead, you say I can't win and I can't swim, but I'm going in, it must be a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, must be a darker love that my mama gave to me, it must be a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, must be a darker love, and what we used to see, it must be a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, a darker love, that my daddy gave
That's Niall McCabe. That's called Darker Love. Speaking of things that are dark, George Lee is going to join me very shortly, and we'll have a chat about the general election, the Irish general election, which happened last Friday. We went to the polls. Voting started on Saturday morning, continued through Sunday, finished in most places on Sunday, but concluded nationally on Monday, which was great. And you'll find out more about that when George and myself have a chat just after these.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
George Lee, you were absolutely right. Well, pretty much on the ball and on the money in relation to the general election results. You're welcome to the programme. How are you, firstly?
I'm fine, Ger. Not too bad at all. Just basking in the pleasure of you telling me that I was right, which is kind of an unusual thing.
Well, it's very unusual for it to happen, George. I mean, that's that must be said at the outset. Anyway, I suppose we were talking last week on the programme about the lacklustre campaign and that nothing had happened. And you said, keep an eye on social media. There's a bomb to come yet, maybe. It didn't come. And everybody went off and we cast our vote and watched with anticipation as the tallies, well, the exit polls firstly. What amazes me, George, is so often over the last 10 to 15 years, in advance, the pollsters get it wrong. And the wrong story is what we latch onto. But when it comes to things like exit polls and tallies, you can pretty much put it in concrete, can't you? Once the exit polls, and particularly the tallies from early in the days and the counts happen.
Well, the tallies, particularly, Ger, I suppose the tallies are based on factual, and the guys and girls that do the tallies are very skilled at what they do. It's literally leaning in over the fences at the things, and just some people are commissioned to look at the number ones and others are commissioned to look at the number twos. The exit poll wasn't particularly right, Ger, and it skewed things a little bit. And I was amazed how the media ran with for those 12 or 18 hours between the time that the exit poll came out and the time that the first tally started to come in. The media were full of what the exit poll was saying, and then suddenly the tallies started coming in, and the picture changed slightly. Especially, I mean, even the running order of the parties, I think, has been completely reversed. In terms of the number of seats that they got, Fianna Fáil were supposed to be the lowest, I think, and Sinn Féin were the top on the exit poll, and actually it's turned out the other way around. And it's also interesting. I mean, I just love the proportional representation, single transferable vote system, because where Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael had pretty much even Steven on the voting percentages. There's actually 9 seats in the end. I think between the two of them is 9 or 10 seats.
48 and 38, 10 seats.
10 seats, and Sinn Féin, even with a lower vote than Fine Gael,
have 39 seats.
A seat more than Fine Gael. And it's just to me, it is the perfect electoral system. It gives credit, and I know. Look, the other thing is the stubby pencil. I don't think the stubby pencil will ever go out of vogue in Ireland, and I think long may it continue. I know we've dallied a number of times. We've dallied a number of times with changing the PRSTV system.
That's right, we have.
Back in the 70s. In fact, it was Fianna Fáil that tried to change that on 2 occasions, and they were put back in their box. And we've also dallied, of course, with electronic voting, and we couldn't be having that now.
No.
But I do think that we will see postal voting becoming a thing here in Ireland, possibly before the next general election.
It actually, I didn't realise, but there is a facility to have a postal vote, but the window is very, very, very thin.
It is, and the parameters are very, very, very small.
They are. If you're away for work or something like that, and you have to have documentation to prove it. If you're going to Ibiza, you're going to somewhere else for your holidays, that doesn't count. You can't have a postal vote for that reason. But I heard some discussion on the radio about it. It has pretty much, in fact, one of the things that didn't happen that we talked about last week, because I introduced it, was the huge number of independents only got 16 seats, and that's a very hefty number, but there were talks that they could have up to 40 seats at some point prior to the election.
I also predicted that, Ger.
I think you did. Jeepers. But what is going to be interesting is that I think, from listening to conversations, that it's probably going to be Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and independents that will make up the next government.
Looks that way, I think. In fact, I'm thinking about maybe cancelling our G2, and I might just do one with Ivan Yates myself.
Yeah, a bit of news to you on that score, by the way, but we'll talk about that off air.
Well, of course, you couldn't have two people that are right in every room, you know.
No.
but yeah, look, it does look as if that's what the government formation is going to be, Ger. And again, I think that would make a strong enough government, to be honest with you. No, to me, look, the number is 88. So once they get to 88, they're in a majority situation with the casting vote of the Count Corley.
Yeah.
But I think in reality, and listening to a lot of the pundits over the last while, to be sure, I think they will need 94.
At least they'll need anywhere 94 to 96. Yeah.
And depending on, you know, how wishy-washy the independents they get are going to be, and I suppose, you know, as well as that, the legislative stuff that's going to come in front of them over the next few years as well is going to be quite important. Although I don't think there's too much in there in terms of legislation that's going to be terribly divisive. You know, I think all of the major social issues are nearly parked at this stage. We may have something around, I would imagine budgets will probably be very contentious, particularly around housing and around disabilities. And again, I know we'll probably talk about this later on, just as to what the big issues were in the campaign. But I think there's enough. Sean Kenny had hardly been elected, and he was on RTE telling them that he was waiting for the phone call.
Yeah.
The same with Michael Lowry.
Boxer Moran will be in that as well.
Yeah, Boxer Moran delighted to be in the camp as well. And I would say they wouldn't be rebuffed by Independent Ireland, by Richard O'Donoghue and his bunch as well, if they went there. Although I think they might be just a little bit too radical for a very mainstream government. Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting times. And then, of course, you know, you can be the fittest man in the world and the bus can knock you down, you know. So it's, as Donald Rumsfeld famously said, it's the unknown unknowns that get you in the end.
Yeah, but we didn't know about that at the time.
And that's precisely it, you know.
Sinn Féin will be disappointed, but I would think that they will be heartened as well, because when the election was called, they had been through a very difficult summer. They had also plummeted in the polls. Was there a sense of arrogance over the last number of years that Sinn Féin could do this on their own and didn't bother really taking control and saying, okay, left-wing parties, we need to unite to get rid of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael? Is there an element of that? Will they be kicking themselves?
There was a poem on the Leaving Cert when I was doing it, and it went somewhere along the lines of Fadil Saniha Marian or a weakness, which basically means whistling past the graveyard, you know. And I think Sinn Féin for the last number of years have had the swagger and arrogance that, you know, being at 37%, which I think they were at one stage in the polls, you know, and kind of 45% of the electorate, it can get you a majority under the PR system. And I think they kind of had their eye on that and said, look, you know, we'll get a couple of radical lefters in with us and that we'll be in government ourselves. And I think that's where the strategy was about 12 months ago. And then, of course, it started to collapse around them. And then there was no safety net. And I think they went into this election knowing that they were kind of all even Steven. I think Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, you know, Sinn Féin, and depending on the hop of the ball in terms of transfers and seats and all of that sort of thing, you know, they could have been 5 or 6 seats more or 5 or 6 seats less, but they knew where they were going to be. And they probably also knew that if they were going to be there, that there was no path to power for them, Jerry, you know? Like, unless, and I mean, even now, you know, they're flapping around. Some of them are still flapping around and putting out the kind of the olive branch and saying, well, you know, no, like if the rotating Taoiseach doesn't work out, Fianna as in Fianna Fáil will still talk to you. And I really don't know if I don't think they had a safety net. I think they were going in to see what they could do to try to maximise where they are. And I think now is a time for reappraisal. So that's where Sinn Féin are. Can Mary Lou survive, or will she want to survive another 5 years in opposition? You know, can the party survive another 5 years in opposition? Because, you know, they're going to have to do something differently, Ger. If they're going to be in opposition, because, you know, they haven't been, to go from 37% down to 20% of the vote in the space of 12 months. As a party in opposition, it kind of suggests that something isn't right.
Is it a case that at some point either Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael are going to have to go into government with Sinn Féin? They've never been in government in Ireland, and they don't know how to do it. They think they do, but they don't necessarily, because they've never been there. Is there going to be a need for one of the Civil War parties to eventually say, well, you know what, okay, let's do this, and hold their hand in their first term?
Okay. The next time that there's going to be an election in Ireland, general election in Ireland, is 2029. At that point, we'll be 110 years or thereabouts out of the Civil War. At that point, you know, we'll be what, 29 and 6 is 35 years away from the Good Friday Agreement. At that point, there will be a new political landscape. You know, Simon Harris may be gone. Micheál Martin, I think, will certainly be gone. There's a rump within Fianna Fáil that would be happy to talk to Sinn Féin. And I think there's always a rump within Fianna Fáil that if their backs are to the wall and they're not going to get into government, they'll talk to bloody anyone.
That's right, they'll talk to you.
You know, and I think that's there. Remember, in 5 years' time as well, the spectre of Gerry Adams and the spectre of all that has gone before will be slightly more removed. And also Sinn Féin will have had 5 years to strategize as to where they are and what they are, and maybe rebrand a little bit and all of that. And it's quite interesting that the only ones that people spoke about Sinn Féin going into government with were Fianna Fáil. And of course, Fianna Fáil would have always had the Republican Party as their tagline as well, which is, you know, eating out of the same pot, I suppose, as Sinn Féin. But somebody did make the point during the election that Sinn Féin have come a long way since, you know, they had, it was a Queeveen O'Quailon was their first elected TD in the South. And this time round, in that particular constituency, they pulled a second TD in, as well as 39, as well as 37 others. You know, so like, Sinn Féin have come a long way. The dirty linen of the past is washing out, but it's taking a long time to wash out. I think where you need to look, and this is quite interesting, was to me, the story, one of the stories of the election was the rise of the Social Democrats, which is kind of new Labour in a certain sense, kind of Labour for yuppies, as somebody described it. To me. And I was amazed talking to a lot of particularly young women over the last few days, that there seems to be a vote, particularly when there's a female candidate, there seems to be a kind of a young woman vote for, it's kind of like driving a Mini, you know. You know, the red Minis and the Fiat 500s. It's a little bit of voting Social Democrat is the political equivalent of that, I think, you know.
Okay. Interesting. We lost two ministers And potentially there could have been more casualties. I suppose the highest profile too would be Stephen
Donnelly. Yeah.
Stephen Donnelly, thank you. The health minister. And of course you had the arts and communications minister, Catherine Martin, losing her job as well. So the health one is going to be a very interesting one because it's got so many problems. So what's going to happen there, do you think? Of course, it's all going to come over the wash, really, with negotiations and who will they want it? Will they want
be surprised? I wouldn't be surprised to see Fianna Fáil kind of saying to Fine Gael, you can have that one. You know?
That's what I was going to say to you. Yeah. Will it be something that they'll pass around? No, you have that one. No. You hang on to that yourselves.
But and again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think this goes back to what came up in the campaign, and I think health was one of the major issues, and dealing with the health problems in the country were one of the major issues. Now, that was predictable enough, I suppose, but what wasn't as predictable, I think, was the focus on disabilities. And that became a major rallying call, particularly around the faux pas that Simon Harris made.
In Kintork.
And nothing, by the way, will convince me that didn't have a major impact on the election campaign. I think it did. And I think what it showed was that Simon Harris, this whole new energy thing was that he had as his catchphrase was kind of dropped after that. And suddenly people realised that he did have feet of clay after all, and that he was capable of gaffes. But to go back to that, yes, I think health is going to be a critical one. I think there may, and I know this came up, there may be a minister for disabilities put in place. Just to manage, whether it'll be a senior minister or a junior minister. I know there was one there. I think the lady from Waterford, Mary Butler, was the Minister for Disabilities, but I think it will become more high profile than it has been heretofore.
And better funded, I presume.
And better funded. Definitely, I think we're looking at the end, for instance, of the means test for a carer's allowance. I think that's definitely going to go, and very quickly, once the government is formed. And I think there is going to be a new bounce about this. I think they'll try to get stuff in the first 6 or 9 months before the next budget. And cost of living, I think, has also become to the fore, and they'll certainly be trying to do that. But you see, Ger, and I've made this point before, and I think I said it the last day even, when America gets a sniffle, Ireland gets pneumonia.
That's right.
We're a small open economy. I mean, God knows, Rhode Island, I think, is a bigger area than Ireland in terms of population and all of that. So we really do punch above our weight, and I think sometimes we forget that. That we are a small open economy sitting on a small island, off the coast of Europe. We really shouldn't have the profile. We really shouldn't have the economic success. And look, we're a great people on so many levels, but there is an awful lot of winds coming down the track. Even listening, today to the radio, and they're talking about what's happening in Ukraine. You're listening to what's happening in South Korea. There's no nuclear submarines been spotted off Taiwan. There's an awful lot of strange things happening.
And you've got the situation in France. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean the French. Germany is now looking at very right-wing stuff beginning to rise again. You have Orban in Hungary. Von der Leyen, who's over the European Parliament, is kind of hauled beneath the waterline a little bit since her re-election. Really, Ireland was the only election this year that returned pretty much the same government.
That's right.
Anywhere in the world. And would be seen as being a stable government. So I think that will stand for something as well, by the way. I think financially, I think people will look at Ireland, particularly Americans that might have money to invest in things. I think will look at Ireland and maybe in a different light when they see that there's a level of stability has now come in, because that stability is going to be there for 5 years. And there's, no matter what you think of Micheál Martin or Simon Harris or Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or any of that, they do have the mileage on the clock, as I said the last day. And they also do have kind of a steady hand at the tiller. And there seems to be, large companies are comfortable dealing with these people. large investment funds are comfortable with dealing with these people. And I think that's very important internationally, and we can't underestimate that.
I was with my mum doing a bit of shopping on Friday, just before lunchtime, and she and I had gone to her polling booth to vote. I had to vote in Ennis later in the afternoon, and she just happened to say to the girl at the checkout, "Have you voted yet?" And the girl behind the checkout was a lady in her early 30s, I would imagine. And she said, "No, I'm working until 5 o'clock." But she said, "I can't wait to cast my vote." And I took that as an anti-government statement. I may have been completely wrong, but that's what I took it as. But I also took it and I said to myself, is that the way an awful lot of people are feeling today? That they can't wait to kick the government? But yet I was stunned after thinking about that the following morning to realise, or later that evening, that about 60% or just under 60% of us went to vote. Why was that?
I think that there's going to be PhDs written on this particular election, and when they go to analyse what voted, what didn't vote, and the way in which people voted, because I think younger, and again, this goes back to where we started the conversation, young people today are more inclined to use computers, they're more inclined to use postal, the stubby pencil and going into a little box and all of that, while it has a certain allure, they don't engage with it, Ger. I mean, even getting my own crew at home who would be political, to engage with that kind of level of, why do I have to go back to the school that I went to for 10 years?
All the intelligent questions.
And this lady below with a ruler and a pencil drawing a line through your name when you're done, and you have to go into this little thing, and, it's pulled out once every 5 years and there's mothballs on it, and lads have written their name on the
That's right.
So while it's lovely and it's quaint in a kind of an archaic way, maybe we do need to look at the way in which people cast their votes. And I'm not advocating at all for electronic voting, but in this day and age, it shouldn't be beyond the wit of man that somebody can do their vote online, and be able to do it in that way. And I think in that respect, you'll pull an awful lot more young people. Now, there is also an awful lot of apathy amongst young people. And I think it's a generation that we've reared, and I know every generation, my own father would have said, geez, you're an awful soft bunch.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Look, I think COVID had a lot to do with it as well. I think, we have come through strange times, and I think we've also produced people, and we've also produced a very educated bunch of people who are kind of looking at some of the people that are presenting themselves as politicians, and they're saying, God, the Healy Rays and, Matty McGrath, and the one thing that my 19-year-old daughter mentioned the other day was, she said, God, Dad, she said, do they all have to put him up on their shoulders and give him a shake and act?
Oh, they do, yeah, they do. Well, that's part of it.
Look, I know it's part of it, and it's all tradition and it's all of that, and we'd miss it if it wasn't there. But equally, for a new generation looking at this, maybe it needs to be just approached in a different way.
Did you feel sorry for those that lost their seats? Bearing in mind, these are politicians we're talking about.
I feel sorry for anyone that loses a job, Ger. I think it must be an awful fall from grace. I mean, there was one particular family. I know there was one Green family that lost. Mother and father both lost their seats.
That's right.
And they were a husband and wife combination. And you could just imagine the breakfast table the following morning, like when they're kind of, going on Indeed.
And the child says, I don't want Cocoa Pops.
And Dad, what are you doing here anyway?
Yeah.
So look, you'd also look at the likes of Stephen Donnelly. And I mean, And look, there's no fear of him, as they would say, because he was a consultant, I think, with Deloitte before he went into politics. Yeah. So there's no fear of him. But equally, it must be an awful fall from grace to 1 minute being yes minister, no minister, and being feted everywhere you go, and the phone ringing. There's a great story told about a very, very senior European politician, and I won't go any further than that to protect the guilty, who was in a very, very senior role in Europe at one point, and he went from a situation, he resigned, he retired, and he decided the following week anyway, the elections were all over and everything else, and he said suddenly the phone just stopped ringing. Nobody contacted him. And the following Saturday, he got a phone call, and I have this from the horse's mouth because I heard him tell this story. The following Saturday, the phone rang, and there was a Cork voice on the other end of the phone. Hello. Friend, this is Jimmy or whatever from the Mellow Homes and Gardens show. Listen, he says, we were just thinking here. He says, you would never do the opening for us, would you?
Right.
And he was just on the point, like saying, okay, when you went, there's 2 tickets in it for you. And he said it was at that point he realised that he had to go away and do something else and become a consultant or something somewhere along the line. He said if his future was opening the Mallow, the garden fence around the country and getting 2 free tickets, it wasn't going to cut. So look, it's a major fall from grace, particularly if they've lost it and they were in the ministerial ranks. Some of them probably saw it coming. I would imagine the likes of Catherine Martin probably saw it coming, and I do feel sorry for her because she's an able lady. And she has had a very difficult course with all that's happened with RTE, and I think she proved herself a little bit. But you would just hope that they'll pick themselves up, dust themselves down, either get into or get out of politics. We have it here in Limerick with Brian Ledden. I mean, Brian Ledden was a Green TD, and the writing has been on the wall for Brian, I'd say, for the last 2 years. I think the dogs on the street do that. And the big question was going to be who was going to get his seat. And I think, again, here in Limerick, it was a surprise to see that the Labour man took the seat. In some respects, and in another respect, looking at the Limerick constituency, there's always been a soft left vote in Limerick.
There has,
and I think it's just been reclaiming that.
It even goes back to Jim Kemmy, and even before
that. It goes back further than that. It goes back to Frank Prendergast. It goes back to Lipper. It goes back all the way to Mick Keys, who was the very first government minister from Limerick back in the 1930s and 1940s. Okay. So there has always been, and I think that comes pretty much from the murdered mayors, going all the way back to those times, that there's always been a soft. And in fact, you have 1.5 left-wing seats really in Limerick now, which is interesting because you also have Maurice Quinlivan in Sinn Féin, who would be seen as being, left-leaning as well.
Is there a junior minister in either Clare or Limerick, do you think? I know the county has one, or had one.
I would say that there is a senior ministry in Clare. That would be my sense of it.
Jimmy Dooley?
I think Jimmy Dooley, I think Jimmy Dooley will get a senior ministry. He's very aligned to Micheál Martin by all accounts.
Very.
So I can't see him being passed over. I'd say that will be the senior minister. We also, we had a senior minister in Limerick County last time out, in Patrick O'Donovan. So he was in the OPW. Or say that he wound up then, I think, in education, wasn't it? I think
higher education. Yeah,
higher education. And Kieran O'Donnell was a junior minister in charge of the OPW. So I would say Midwest will probably get 1 senior minister and maybe 2 junior ministries. That would be my sense of it.
Okay, all righty. So it is all kind of just about the roaring and the shouting now, really.
I would actually feel sorry for Cathal Crowe in that particular shakeout, because he's a man. Is this his third time being re-elected? Second or third time?
It's his second outing.
His second outing, he's been re-elected, and no matter what, he pulled in a second TD this time round in the constituency. But I think a friendship and the fact that Timmy has been there before will get him the nod over Cahill.
Oh, it will. That was the discussion at the count on Sunday. The fact that Cahill doesn't push himself forward as much as he could or should, but the friendship and the alliance between...
Can I also just make another observation, Ger? I have to take my hat off to RTE. The national broadcast, and in fact to Newstalk as well, because I tended to have RTE in the house and Newstalk in the car over the last few days. But I thought that the RTE television coverage was excellent, and we have to, we kick them when they're down, but I think you have to faith them when they're up. And I thought David McCullough was just in his element, absolutely wonderful. And all around the country you had all the various count centres, and of course our own man up there in Galway East doing it for Mike McCartney was
Mike was there,
East, and he did a great job on that as well. John Hook was reporting, another
Pat McGrath was,
Pat McGrath, obviously Rachel English. So there was a lot of people that we knew around the country that were involved in the RTE production. So you take your hat off to all of them and say well done, and a well-deserved rest, I've no doubt, this week.
I would imagine so. All righty, George, thanks a million for having a chat with us about General Election 2024. And as I said, it's all over bar the shouting now. We'll have to see how it all...
I think the shouting will be done by Christmas, Ger. That would be my sense of it.
Micheál Martin said that yesterday, that the vast majority will be done by Christmas, and I suppose a few loose ends to be tidied up after Christmas, and we'll have a government, I would imagine, mid-January, which would be
fantastic. And again, that would also give a great message, I think, internationally and to corporates, that we can get business done and we can move on.
True. All right, George Lee, thanks ever so much. We look forward to chatting to you again in the very near future.
All right, sure.
Secrets you just can't keep. Sometimes you're in too deep, and the world ain't big enough to lose the one you're thinking of. The streets don't change in this town. Girls on the corner hanging around. I feel the draw, I feel the pull. All I see are spaces full. Hey. Road feels like my head is going to explode. The rain is dancing out on the street. The woman beside me's asleep in her seat. I think I'll go get lost. Dreams are worth more than they cost. I'm driving through, the skies are dull, and all I see are spaces full. Yeah.
I thought that would be appropriate. It's called Space is Full. We should have replaced it with Seats Full, really, shouldn't we? Because they are all done and dusted. That's Davy Fury. We met Davy on the programme. We had a big old chat with him not so long ago and enjoyed it immensely. Thank you to George Lee for analysing and chatting about the results of the general election 2024 in Ireland. I know this is not an Irish story, but we have listeners from all over the world listening. So just in case you haven't heard the news, French politicians have ousted the government with a no-confidence motion, an unprecedented move which plunges the Eurozone's second biggest economic power deeper into political turmoil. Prime Minister Michel Barnier's administration is France's first to be forced out of office in more than 60 years at a time when the country is struggling to tame a massive budget deficit. He was just 3 months in office. There will be a lot more about that story. As I said, I appreciate it's not Irish, but I wanted to give you the info because it came in just before myself and George finished chatting. Now, the Irish language rap group Kneecap has won its discrimination case over a decision by former Conservative Minister Kemi Badenoch to refuse them funding. Now, Miss Badenoch refused to give them an arts grant while a minister in the previous Tory government in Britain. Group member DJ Provey arrived at Belfast High Court in a repurposed RUC Land Rover for the short proceedings. In a statement, the UK's Department of Business and Trade said it would no longer be contesting the case. Under the terms of the settlement, it agreed that the original decision had been unlawful and procedurally unfair. Kneecap said the case had never been about money. For us, this action was never about the £14,250. It could have been 50 pence, the group said. The motivation was equity. This was an attack on artistic culture, an attack on the Good Friday Agreement itself, and an attack on Kneecap and on our way of expressing itself, the group's way of expressing itself. Kneecap will now receive the 14,000 plus grant, and it will split it between two community groups, one on either side of the Belfast peace line, which is good. Miss Badenoch has since become Conservative Party leader, as you probably know. The rapper's application for a grant from the Music Export Growth Scheme was said to have been shortlisted and approved by an industry panel, but the final approval rested with the UK's Department for Business and Trade and the Department for Culture, Media and Sport. Miss Badenoch was at that time the business secretary and decided to refuse the funding. The rap group claimed a provocative poster for their 2019 Farewell to the Union tour had angered the Conservative Party. The UK government issued a statement confirming the end of the case. It said the government's priority is to try and reduce costs and help protect the taxpayer from further expense. So we will not continue to contest Kneecap's challenge, as we do not believe it's in the public interest. The music industry is the heart and soul of our economy and are committed to helping acts continue to thrive and break into new markets, including through our MEGS programme, which has helped around 400 artists tour the globe. Speaking outside Belfast High Court, DJ Provey said that it was an affront to the courts that the group had to take legal action to secure the grant award. He said it is also an affront to the Tory government and the British government that they felt they had to overreach in trying to stop a band getting funding. There was a lot made about that the other day. Was it on Friday? Yes, it was Friday. Right, let's have a look at this. Yes, this might be the one to bring to you. City and county councils handled more than 70,000 environmental complaints last year, but it was still not enough to counter all the pollution, dumping and damage going on. In an enforcement report, the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, says that councils need to quadruple the number of farm inspections that they carry out to stop animal waste and chemical chemical waste contaminating waterways. It said they need to put more effort into water pollution and air pollution, with particular emphasis on catching those flouting smoky fuels regulations. It also says few councils are tackling noise pollution or working with transport authorities to find ways of keeping the decibels down. Turning inspections into enforcement proceedings and penalties also needs attention. Despite the many complaints about the 212,000 inspections that followed, there were just 17,000 notices issues and 470 prosecutions initiated. The effective enforcement of environmental law is essential to identify polluters and non-compliant operators and to hold them to account, said Tom Ryan, who is the director of the EPA's Office of Environmental Enforcement. Local authority leadership is critical in better environmental outcomes through the prioritisation of environmental enforcement and the appropriate allocation of resources. Councils are responsible for implementing a wide range of environmental regulations, including those covering septic tanks, household waste, construction rubble, littering, dumping, scrapping cars, faulty sewage connections, air quality and noise levels. The EPA enforcement report highlights examples where crackdowns had important outcomes. A 2-year operation by Fingal County Council ended last year, identifying and closing down more than 80 illegal scrapped car operations. More than 1,700 vehicles were removed and taken to authorised ELV, end-of-life vehicle dealers, to be properly disposed of. In Donegal, a 5-year effort increased the number of households using the 3-bin system for separating compostable waste from recycling and residual waste. This went from 1,600 households to more than 17,500. The joint initiative by South Dublin and Rathdown County Councils targeted 16,300 homes near a polluted river and stream. They found that 1,000 homes had fixable wastewater misconnections, contributing to the problem. Limerick City and County Councils were praised for identifying noise hotspots, strengthening noise as a factor in assessing planning applications, and developing an action plan for tackling noise. The EPA stressed that performance was not consistent across the country. Local authorities such as Kildare, Meath, Dublin City, Monaghan, Carlow, Cork County, Donegal and Wicklow scored highly for their efforts. Others such as Westmeath, Galway City, Waterford, Wexford, Sligo and Kilkenny performed poorly. The EPA said enforcement of illegal waste and dumping activities had improved, but other issues needed more attention, such as smoke pollution. A number of councils had tests carried out on coal for sale in their areas and found only a third of samples were compliant with low sulphur content rules. A strong inspection campaign of solid fuel producers and retailers is needed by local authorities to make sure that only approved solid fuels are available for sale and to protect public health from harmful air pollutants, the report said. There's a lot in that, and there was a lot more, but I didn't want to kind of go on and on and on and on and on, because it wouldn't be my style. It wouldn't be, no. Final piece of music on the programme this evening from Fountains DC. Here's a song that's called Bug. Not the Millennium Bug, no, that's gone.
Change my name to promise you, yeah. Dying inside, cause I want you, yeah. Didn't I say I wanted to, yeah. Honey, I've changed before you, yeah. 28 years I come to end. The rain chased me down to Goldie again. Now I'm higher than anyone here, and that ain't nothing on me, yeah. But baby, I swear it, I wanted to call, but on my way around I happened to fall. She's a MUA, I Carnegie Hall. In a vanity mirror, we're losing it all. Where we shacked up swift and down on the way. Catch the sweet rain, the side of the rain. In it, I reflected all of the day, and I will fade in the night, yeah. Will you apologize for safest man in heaven for one. As long as there's nobody feeling me there, then there ain't nothing on me. Yeah, yeah, they threw me out like I was a wedding bouquet. Now I can't quite remember what I had to say, till I get higher than everyone here, and I will fade in the night, yeah. In the shameless corner, I promise to be gone. I almost felt the feeling that I wanted to, yeah. You thought I was here, but I'm farther than the sun. Silent as the feeling that I promised you, yeah. Well, I changed my name to promise you, yeah. It's easier than making apologies, yeah. Now I'm higher than anyone, yeah. There ain't nothing on me, yeah.
And they're finished just like that. Fountains DC. That's a song that's called Bug. Final program. The final piece of music on the program this evening. Right. That's it. Yeah, we're done. We're dusted. We're out the gap, as the fella says. Thank you to Patricia for her story on the first female president of Ireland. To George for the post-general election review. As always, can I say a big thank you, as I do at the end of each program, a big thanks to Antonio Sierra, our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor on the program. But I suppose, in fairness, the biggest thank you must go to you for deciding to tune in, and thank you very much for doing that. I hope that you will join me next week. I have a lovely program lined up for you, I hope, and look forward to presenting it to you next Wednesday between 7 and 9. In the meantime, have a great week. Don't forget to get the Christmas shopping done now, and don't buy me anything too big. From me, Ger Sweeney. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.